from Abuja.
Hello, thank you for being a part of our show. I appreciate you. I'm Magnus Packle, and this is Magnus Packle GVA, Global Views Africa. As you know, it's all about how we can raise the level of living. That's what it's all about. In view today, Ghana and economic integration in West Africa. To discuss this, we will sit down with His Excellency, William Awanido Kenyirige, the High Commissioner of Ghana to Nigeria. But before that, in our hidden economics, presidential election forecasting for dummies. Now up next, we bring you some business and development indicators in our quick view. That's coming right up. One of the great innovations in human history is the city, especially large cities. Large cities have tended to be the centers of economic, political, cultural, and community life. People often think of large cities as where the big and game-changing events are taking place. In this connection, which of the following is not among the largest 5 cities in the world? Shanghai, Karachi, New York, and Beijing. Which of the following is not among the largest 5 cities in West Africa? Ibadan, Kano, Dakar, and Accra. Stay with us for our answers coming up shortly. Still in view, Ghana in West Africa's integration. But up next in our hidden economics, presidential election forecasting for dummies.
Buddy, you're a boy, make a big noise, playing in the street, gonna be a big man someday. You got mud on your face, you big disgrace, kicking your can all over the place, singing, we will rock you. We will rock you.
Today, we will rock you with something different. We will discuss how you might attempt to predict a presidential election. So you want to forecast a presidential election result? Well, that's usually not so difficult for very good consulting economists. So here is presidential election forecasting for dummies. For an incumbent president to win, check to see if the economy is growing jobs much better than when he first became president. Are people seeing improvements in their livelihood? For a challenger, check whether he looks relatively honest and believable and knows what he's promising or talking about. Or whether he's attempting to practice sorcery. Economic sorcery is when a candidate, in essence, assures that he can provide what appears impossible, as though he would use magical forces to make it happen. Recall that Mr. George H.W. Bush accused Mr. Ronald Reagan of voodoo economics when both of them were contending Republican presidential candidates to be their party's standard bearer. Now listen to this. The incumbent president cannot count on promises for the future. His primary weapon is his record, and he must run on it. He must convince the people that his record is good and should be built upon. The challenger can make promises, but must explain why the people should believe him, and especially why he's not a little better, but indeed far better than the incumbent. Some negative campaigns may work, but it can be very irredeemably counterproductive if it crosses a certain threshold. Even so, every candidate must defend himself from mudslinging. Don't let the mud stick. And then to add to this, a candidate that champions a very popular cause may also have an advantage. So there you have it. Now, even dummies can predict a presidential election winner by using our key variables in his model. But this works only in a well-behaved society where the data are available and questionnaires are answered honestly. So what if there are strong ethno-religious, insincere, disingenuous, and sycophantic tendencies in the society? Well, if that's the case, it will be impossible to market a book on presidential election forecasting for dummies. Even so, we have models for even the most complex situations, but it is not for dummies. So, do we have any predictions for the Nigerian presidential election? Well, that's a different matter. Our hidden economics for you. Before we start our discussion in view, here are our quick view answers. The city on our list, not among the largest 5 in the world, is New York City. The city on our list, not among the largest 5 in West Africa, is Accra. For more information on our show, see our contacts displayed on the screen. In view today, Ghana and economic integration in West Africa. To discuss this, we have in our studio His Excellency Ambassador William Azuma Awinado Kenyirige, High Commissioner of Ghana to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Ambassador Awinado Kenyirige was previously the Deputy Permanent Representative of Ghana to the United Nations. He had served as Director at ECOWAS and the AU, following many high-level positions in the Ghanaian government. Please join me in my discussion with His Excellency, Ambassador Awinado Kenyirige. All right, Your Excellency, we want to thank you for being in our studio. Well, last Friday you had a wonderful Independence Anniversary celebration here in Abuja, and you gave a wonderful speech. What was at the heart of that speech that you gave to all those wonderful people that came to see you?
Okay. Yeah, Doc, if you allow me, let me first of all appreciate your very kind invitation to be on your program. I've always respected you since the days in government as an advisor to former President Obasanjo. I consider that era, you know, at the beginning of this century, we're talking about the African Renaissance. I think that was the era of the Nigerian Renaissance in modern day governance. So for me, it's a privilege not just to be on the program, but to have you as my host. Yeah, having said that, coming back to the question, for us, Ghana's 58th independence anniversary was a day of what we would call in Ghanaian Akan language, Sankofa, where you go back to your roots, see where you've come from, and as a modern nation, young nation, because 58 years in the nation's life is like 5 plus 8. So yeah, so and then see where we are standing and where we're going, and that was specifically the thrust of our president's speech, which had earlier on been preceded by his State of the Nation address, which he made a couple of days before the independence message. That we've come a pretty long way over the years, but if we do a proper Sankofa and see where we come from,
Yes.
and appreciate our roots, and we'll see the achievements we made, and recognize that those achievements are not just limited to small communities, small ethnic groups, or one political party, but they have very wide national and cross-national ramifications into the global also. And for that matter, to have that at the back of our minds, if we want to build national cohesion and national development, regional integration and regional development, and of course global solidarity and global progress. That was the thrust.
Wonderful.
Of the message.
Yeah, you know, because as you know, Ghana holds a very solid, remarkable historic place in Africa. If you outside of say Ethiopia and to some extent what may have happened in Liberia, but as the really true, at least in contemporary times, first country, you know, to gain independence.
Okay.
And as you know, Kwame Nkrumah at the time said that this must lead to the total liberation of all of Africa.
That's right.
Now, so Ghana has always shown leadership in Africa in that regard. Now, in modern times, and especially in light of the 58th anniversary of independence, what are some of the areas? I know there are areas, you know, where Ghana is showing leadership, maybe say democracy, whatever it is. Are there some notable areas, you know, where Ghana is showing leadership, you know, for other African countries to follow?
Okay. Yeah, but if you recall, Kwame Nkrumah said, "Seek ye first the political kingdom,
Yes.
and everything else will be added unto you." You also recall that he was actually training to become a Catholic priest. So it's not surprising that you get those faith-based phrases. And people, of course, sometimes misinterpreted that and took it literally. But basically what he was trying to say was that if Africa was to integrate and take its destiny into its own hands and develop at a very fast pace, we needed to liberate the continent.
Sure.
And so in terms of what else has happened after the collapse of apartheid and the end of the liberation, I mean, there are still lingering challenges which we are dealing with. But one of the areas that I think Ghana may have contributed to is those early attempts to contribute to global peace, starting with the Congo. I mean, Ghana's participation in the UN peacekeeping operations in the 60s in the Congo. And the very prophetic messages that Nkrumah put out those years, I mean, about the evolution of global peace and the need to promote global justice if we are to have global peace. So he's been vindicated in that. So but along with our newly independent African countries and along with our friends and partners in Asia and Latin America within the umbrella of or framework of the non-aligned movement, Kwame Nkrumah at that time, if you recall, together with Suharto of Indonesia and Nehru of India and Nasser of Egypt, among others, gave this leadership. So on the global scene, we have taken our rightful place, not yet fully, in terms of contributing as equal partners with the rest of the world. In order to build global justice and peace. And that is an ongoing project. The second one I would say off my head is about contributing our human resources to this enterprise. And we are happy to note personalities like the then former Secretary General of UNCTAD. Of course, I mean, I cannot say that without quickly mentioning Dr. Kofi Annan. I mean, the second African and first African sub-Saharan to have occupied that very key position at the UN, and Dr. Chambers as President of ECOWAS Commission, and along with others, of course, from sister country Nigeria, Chief Emeka Anyaoko at the Commonwealth, among others. I mean, we've helped to provide this human resource contribution to promoting global peace and development, as well. Then on the cultural front, you recall that the other message Nkrumah tried to put on the table was promoting the African personality, and for that matter, African dignity, along with the dignity of the human race. And the ability to have projected our culture on the global scene, which incidentally Nigeria carries on in a very proactive manner, along with other African countries. I think it's also key and is contributing to global understanding and other areas in the cultural sector as well.
The Nigerian elections are coming up.
That's right.
The Ghana recently had theirs. We talked about before we got on the show about how it was so close.
That's right.
And you had President Mahama winning by just like 50-point-something% of the votes.
Okay.
In Nigeria, it is thought that our elections are going to be, presidential elections are going to be very close.
Okay.
What do you think is happening? How do you see the run-up to the elections here in Nigeria? And do you, and if it's close, do you think that we can borrow that model from Ghana, where you were able to have it peaceably, everybody accepted the results? You know, pretty much. I know it had to go through the courts, but in the end, it was well accepted, and the government is going on, and the country is moving on. Do you think that that Nigeria has something, talking about this relationship, this sibling friendship relationship? Do you think that Nigeria has something that they can copy from the very recent experience of Ghana in their presidential elections?
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that question. One of the strengths of Ghana now is to have been able, with the support of our regional and international partners, build this capacity and shock absorbers to weather the storms of the current challenge of organizing credible elections that are closely fought and that have the risks. And very often we look more at the risks than the advantage of elections. Yes. That has a risk to degenerate into conflict. And that is helping us also to attract more investments into the country. But having said that, we also have a regional platform, ECOWAS, and a larger regional platform, the African Union, to share best practices and with each other. And I believe ECOWAS has been trying to do that. As we speak, the protocols that ECOWAS has in the area of peace and security and democracy, I think there's an ongoing exercise to review them. Okay. And a number of meetings have been scheduled to further strengthen our capacity in those areas. I had the privilege of being in Nigeria before, when you were in government as an economic advisor. I recall in the elections of, I think, was it 2007? Elections, a lot of people, we had a similar situation where prior to the elections, there was a lot of anxiety, especially from friends of Nigeria who very often may not quite get the DNA of Nigeria. And people get so scared as to even get out of town at that time. And after the elections, they saw that after all, they had exaggerated. There is more interest in the elections, as is happening all over Africa. It appears, the factors that accompany the previous elections are changing and making it more exciting and keener to be fought. But it should not provoke unnecessary anxiety. It should rather provoke more interest as to how that can be managed effectively for Nigeria to build stronger institutions, not just for Nigeria, but also to share with the rest of Africa and others. And for me, that is the opportunity I see on the horizon. Absolutely. That what we are going to see is more of an attempt to deal with challenges associated with keenly fought elections. And this is an opportunity for Nigeria to bring something onto the table. And I'm optimistic that that is what will happen.
Your
So that's the
Excellency,
little I can
Your
say.
Excellency, your breadth of knowledge is extraordinary.
Oh my,
It's been wonderful having you. We have to have you regularly here because we have so many issues like this that I know that you can make very good contribution for.
Yeah.
We thank you so very much for coming. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you so much. I mean, it has been a pleasure talking to you.
It's been
And as I said, I have so much respect for you. I know what you've done, not just for Nigeria, but for Africa and the diaspora at large.
Thank you,
God
Your
bless.
Excellency. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ghana just had its 58th anniversary of independence on March 6th, celebrating its remarkable and historic achievement of being the first West African country, except Liberia, to gain political independence. Because of these and other facts, Ghana is renowned for its deep roots in African history and economic integration. The importance of regional integration does not need to be emphasized for West Africa or for Africa as a whole. For many small countries on the continent, even including Ghana, integration is an invaluable tool for global economic competitiveness and especially for securing a higher and sustainable quality of life for the people. In 1948, Africa accounted for about 8% of world exports before losing it, dropping to about 2% around 2000. Fortunately, a recent boom and revival has brought it to about 3.2%. Trade among African countries as a share of total is at best about 15%. Most people put it at about 10%, compared to about 60% in Europe and 40% in North America. A major problem is that Africa is probably the only continent where, for the most part, it produces what it does not consume and consumes what it does not produce. About 80% of Africa's exports are commodities and are shipped out of Africa, while about 90% of Africa's imports are finished goods shipped from outside Africa. Sadly, African commodities are bought at very low prices to produce finished goods sold to Africa at very high prices. As Ambassador Awenido Kenyirige has said, Africa must find a way to actualize the vision of its leaders by harnessing all its resources from across Africa and reaching to the diaspora, including the ancestral diaspora, to be able to develop production value chains for stronger economic integration. In addition, our electoral processes must ensure that they produce the leadership and through this, the institutions for fostering production and trade. To trade your own goods, you must first produce them. Otherwise, you remain an agent for foreign goods. I commend the new vision of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, which is now promoting a community of peoples and not simply of states. As I've been emphasizing, the refined economic development that is read in Africa community strategies we are developing at the EBS can help promote Africa's integration from the bottom up, building communities of peoples and not merely of governments. Africa must seek new solutions. I'm Magnus Paco, and that's my view.